participation, and staff will now tell you how to participate or how to view our conversation today. So Connie, can you help us on that one? Or Shannon?
I can help with that. I believe taking roll is supposed to happen first. Is that correct?
Sure, that's fine.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, this is Recording Secretary Shannon Rice taking roll. Director and Chair Waspy.
Here.
Director Wieskamp. Director Wieskamp, I see you. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
I am here.
Great. And Director Eccles.
Here.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Great. And Deborah, would you point out some key staff members and visitors?
Yes, Director Waspy. I'm Deborah Ocker, the AGM of Finance and Management Services. We have Michelle Strawson O'Hara, our Assistant Finance Officer. We have Jeff Rasmussen, Assistant Finance Officer. Christina Crosby, our Budget Manager. David Sumner, our Audit Manager. Tao from Budget, and a few other staff members. I also see Kim Belingett, our Accounting Manager. So welcome, everyone.
Yes, welcome. Okay, so that's all who's here. Shannon, could you tell people listening in how they could participate in our meeting?
Yes, thank you. Today's meeting is held pursuant to the Brown Act as amended by AB 361. Board members and staff may participate via Zoom, video conferencing, and/or through a hybrid of in-person and remote attendance. We are providing live audio and video streaming. Members of the public wishing to make a comment can do so via the Zoom meeting, submitting an email, or leaving a voicemail. This information is noted on the agenda located on the district website, www.ebparks.org. If there are no questions about the meeting procedures, we can begin.
Okay, I see no public members on the screen, so hopefully people will come a little later. Anyway, let's start. Our first item of business is the draft 2021 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. And I think Michelle's going to give us that report.
All right, good afternoon. I'm Michelle Strawson O'Hara, Assistant Finance Officer. And today we are pleased to present our 2021 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. I'd like to start off by recognizing the people who contributed in preparing this document, in particular, Accounting Manager Kim Belingett, who worked very closely with the auditors and had a significant role in putting this together over the past several months. Audit Manager David Sumner prepared the statistical section, and Executive Assistant Connie Swisher handled the document management and put together the final published document. There are many other staff as well throughout the district who helped contribute to the timely completion of this report. After my presentation, we have audit partner Rosalva Flores from Brown Armstrong Accountancy Corporation presenting today and addressing any questions you may have. In addition to our presentation today, we'll be presenting this report to the Park Advisory Committee next Monday, June 27th, and then we'll be bringing this to the full board on July 5th for acceptance. We also had our annual exit conference on June 6th with the audit team and the general manager to discuss the overall audit process and the outcomes. As a reminder of the district's audit cycle, the interim audit kicked off in January with auditors from Brown Armstrong conducting interviews and preliminary testing and reviewing internal controls and compliance. Then at the end of April, they conducted their final fieldwork testing, which was again done remotely for the third consecutive year. The testing and financial report preparation continued through mid-June when we were able to finalize the financial reports. First off, we'd like to walk through the financial report and PowerPoint and highlight what we believe are some key points. The report is broken down into three sections. It starts with the introductory section, then the financial section, then the statistical section. The introductory section includes the transmittal letter and the financial reporting award from the Government Finance Officers Association. The district has received this for the past 21 consecutive years and will be submitting for the award application again for the 2021 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. After the introductory section, the financial section starts with the Independent Auditor's Report, which includes a clean or unmodified audit opinion, then follows with the management's discussion and analysis, the basic financial statements, the notes to basic financial statements, the required supplementary and supplementary information sections, and lastly, the statistical section. The first financial statement is the statement of net position, which can be found on page 31 of your report. And this is the government-wide picture. It's adjusted for full accrual, which means it takes a broader and longer-term view of the financial statements. The government-wide financials include capital assets and long-term liabilities, such as pension liabilities, which are not included in the governmental fund financial statements which follow. After the fund financials are the proprietary funds, which account for the district's internal service funds, such as workers' comp and major infrastructure renovation replacement, major equipment rate replacement, general liability insurance, and employee benefits. Next are the fiduciary fund financial statements, which account for the district's pension plans held in trust. And then the notes to financial statements provide important details to the basic financials. Following the notes, again, are the required supplementary and supplementary information sections and include budgetary information, pension, and retiree medical funding, as well as additional details on non-major governmental funds. And lastly is the statistical section, which provides interesting trends and comparison of data over the past 10 years. This slide shows the increase in net position to $937.2 million, which is primarily made up of net investment in capital assets as the district continues to invest in land acquisitions and development. You can see how the increases in investment in assets, the blue line, is relatively consistent with the total net position, the green line. Investment in capital assets have increased approximately 65% over the past 10 years. This next slide is a summary of the governmental funds balance sheet, which is on page 34 and 35 of the report. And the governmental funds include the general fund, debt service fund, project fund, and other non-major funds, such as the Measure WW Grant Fund, Lighting and Landscaping Districts, etc. The district's governmental funds had a combined fund balance of $291 million, which was an increase of $8 million from the prior year, primarily due to an increase in grants awarded during the year for acquisition and development costs. Governmental accounting classifies these fund balances in a hierarchy, breaking down the fund balance into what's available to spend and what is not. At the top are non-spendable balances, such as inventory and prepaid expenses. The next section is restricted by external parties, legal requirements, or contracts. Committed balances are where the board has passed a resolution to set aside money for special circumstances, and these funds can only be used in compliance with that resolution. Assigned are funds set aside for a specific purpose, such as election costs or legal contingencies, and unassigned is what's left over for future spending consideration. The next slide is a summary of our governmental funds statement of revenue, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. And this can be found on page 38 and 39 of the report. The most significant changes from prior year were decreases in property tax assessments in the debt service funds as the debt tax levy was reduced, and a related reduction in scheduled debt service payments as new bonds weren't issued until 2022. Also, investment revenues were reduced due to unrealized losses, and grant revenues increased the project fund. Next, we'll drill down on the details of the general fund, and this can be found on page 101 of your report. This shows the original approved budget, the final budget, and the actual amounts for 2021. The final budget includes adjustments during the year for appropriations and transfers for the mid-year budget review. In the actual column, the net change in fund balance was 0.5 million or $500,000 for the year negative, which was attributed to increased property tax revenue being offset by unrealized investment losses. The majority of the expenditure variances are related to salaries and benefits, which included negotiated wage increases and equity adjustments, but ended the year under budget due to staff vacancies. Our next couple of slides look at our pension and retiree medical plans. The district's other post-employment or OPEB liability and pension liabilities include the CalPERS and district plans. And they amounted to ending combined liability of 56.5 million at December 31st, 2021, which was a decrease of 81.3 million over the prior year. To help mitigate the district's future retiree obligation, the district has set aside a total of 10.9 million in the irrevocable Section 115 pension trust for future anticipated increased costs of the CalPERS miscellaneous plan. When we look at the pension funding progress, the district is funded at a range of 85% for the CalPERS miscellaneous plan to over 100% for the district's OPEB plan. While these appear well-funded, it is good to keep in mind that these rates represent just a snapshot in time, and they will fluctuate, not only based on contributions and assumption changes, but also changes in the market conditions. The district is continuing its strategy to pre-fund the pensions and contribute to the pension trust. In addition to the report, staff is requesting a recommendation from the committee to bring the auditor's communication with those charged with governance, the 2022 appropriations, organ limit letter, and the single audit report to the board for acceptance. That concludes my presentation today. Before I invite Rosalva Flores from Brown Armstrong to speak, does anyone have any questions for me?
Questions or comments from board members?
Amazing as always.
Hearing none. Yeah, Michelle, I was sort of wondering, you mentioned that funding CalPERS is kind of a tricky deal. And do I assume correctly that when the stock market goes to heck and their presumptions of getting 7.5% or whatever that outrageous number is, and it's going to be really, really bad this coming year, that they just fund it by charging agencies more at the next year, right? Or we take this step, right?
Yeah, you are right that the asset, or in this case, we have assets and liabilities, are based on the market at a particular point in time, and the CalPERS plan is measured as of June 30th, 2021. And so that's why I think we're seeing some very favorable ending balances. But it's very much impacted by market conditions. So we will be receiving our valuation report soon, but at this point, I don't know what those will be, but based on the latest market conditions, it wouldn't be surprising if those liability amounts did increase again. The current, going back to your point about the discount rate, so CalPERS current discount rate, I believe is set at 7.15%, and that's been consistent over the past several years. So that is their, I think, assumption for future earnings. So yes, that may be considered high. And I know that they're in a process, I believe every 5 years, CalPERS goes through a process of evaluating that rate. And I believe they're making a recommendation this year.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public that would like to comment on this? Hearing none, let's continue.
Okay, Rosalva, would you like me to share your presentation, or would you like to do that?
Thanks, Michelle. Paul is joining me today, and he was actually going to show the slides.
Perfect.
Paul, would you please, thank you, Michelle. Would you please share the screen, Paul?
Yes, give me one second.
Sure.
We're happy to have our audit partner here with us and Paul, our audit manager. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Deborah. It's always a pleasure to present to your board. Michelle, thank you for that great presentation, very thorough. I might overlap on some of the items, but I'll definitely keep it short. And the main thing today is we wanted to give you the results of our audit. So with that, again, I am happy to present to you today the audit of the December 31, 2021 financial statements. And again, Paul Sahota, our audit manager, is joining me today. And again, we're very happy to present this information to you and also very happy to answer any questions. So just a quick on our agenda. Paul, if you could go to the next slide. So I'm just going to give you a very quick scope of services recap. Just as a reminder that we did meet with the Finance Committee back in January, talked about our audit services and, provided or gave them the opportunity to input on our plan. And we also went over the audit timeline. But, we also wanted to highlight a few key dates and, we're not going to go into great detail, but just some of the key dates. And then obviously I'm going to jump into the audit results, going into all the reports and letters that we issued. And then I'm just going to quickly end with giving you a really quick on the financial statement review process. So with that, if you can go to the next slide, Paul. Again, feel free to ask me any questions at any point. And you'll remember that in our engagement letter to you, we did describe the objectives of our audit. And so again, I just want to briefly summarize our objectives in performing an audit. Obviously, that's the reason why you engaged us. And so as we're conducting our audit, we are following not only the AICPA standards, but we're also following auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America. And obviously, our main responsibility is to render an opinion on your financial statements. So again, that's our main objective of our audit. And obviously, as we're conducting our audit, we're also having to follow other standards. And one of those is the Yellow Book standards, which is the standards on that deal a lot with internal controls. And I'll talk about that report in a little bit more detail once I cover the audit opinions. And then we're also required as part of our engagement to issue a SAS 114 report, which is our required communication report. Obviously, the main thing here is that, we're conducting our audit, we're communicating with your management, and we're not necessarily communicated throughout the conduct of our audit with the Finance Committee or the board. And so this letter is required by our professional standards. And again, I'll go over it in more detail here shortly. And then one other, before I go to the key timeline that I wanted to highlight is, you do receive quite a lot of federal funds. And so we are also required to perform a compliance audit on these federal funds and report to you any non-compliance or any other reportable items with respect to these federal requirements. So again, I'll go over that report here shortly, but just kind of wanted to give you a very quick overall recap on the scope of services. Next slide, please. And then again, Michelle did a great job at highlighting some of these key dates. So again, today, I just want to go over kind of, where we started January 19, again, kicking off our entrance presentation to the Finance Committee. And then towards the end of January, we performed our interim field work. And I did want to say that we did conduct our interim field work remotely again. This is when we're doing our focus on getting a refresher of our key accounting areas, making sure that we understand any changes, as that is also a very important process within our interim field work. And then obviously we perform any tested controls. A lot of those were rotated in the current year. And so we were able to rely on some of the internal controls that we had performed in the past. But obviously, we also tested internal controls in regards to the single audit on the federal requirements, and those are required to be tested annually. And then we also perform our fraud interviews in accordance with professional standards. Obviously, we're doing it on a random basis, and we do obviously take a look at, who we've interviewed in the past, and we do it from all levels, from staff, management, and also to the finance committee and board members. So that's a process that we're required to do, and we do that annually. And then obviously we're gathering other information for our records to make sure we have relevant information as we're conducting the audit. That not only includes minutes, but also, any relevant agreements as they pertain to the audit. And so we did have our meeting with management beginning of February. That's when we went over, how our interim audit went, talked about any pending items, if there were any issues, and then also went over our critical date list to make sure that, we were still gonna be coming out for our final field work on April 25th, which is when we were scheduled to come back out again. And I'm saying come back out again because we're so used to, but again, this year the audit was also performed remotely. And so when we came back out for our final field work, obviously the books had already been closed. We had already documented our results from interim. We had made any changes to our original plan if needed. And so we came back out and substantiated all the accounts and balances. We also reviewed any confirmations responses that we had received from third parties. And then as we had done a significant amount of the work on the federal funds, we did wrap up our audit and make sure that anything that was pending was completed during that week. And so we also met again with management on May 11. Obviously we always want to go over with management, discuss any key issues, talk about any open items. If we have any sort of recommendations or any sort of adjustments, we want to make sure that we go over those with management so that, we're not surprising at the end, and, obviously giving management the opportunity to comment if there's any recommendations. So that happened on May 11. And then also a part of an annual process that we've been doing is we have been meeting with your general manager. And, that's basically just to give a report. It's a very summarized format, providing them with, how the audit went, again, if there were any findings, we would report also to the general manager, summarize any recommendations. And so again, it was a very brief and summarized, but we've made it a very standard process every year, and we feel it's an important process. So that occurred on June 6th. And then May through June, this is when we were working on wrapping up our audit, assisting your management with the review of the financial statements, and also drafting our audit reports. And so I did want to mention that everything went really well. We did issue our audit reports timely. They were issued on June 9th. And, another item that I wanted to quickly mention too, that has also become a very routine process is, in the past, we've met with the finance committee separately. This is a process that I've done with other organizations, and I think it's also an important process to give the finance committee an opportunity to ask any questions. And so this year, what we did was before today's meeting, I just made myself available if there were any comments and questions, if any finance committee members wanted to reach out. But again, this is something that I do with other organizations. So I just wanted to highlight that. Any questions so far? Okay, thank you. And so I'm going to go ahead and go right into the results of the audit. And obviously, as I mentioned, the most important part of the audit is being able for us to provide you with those audit opinions. And the first one that I'm going to cover is the required communication to you and to the board. Again, it is required by professional standards. And again, just as a brief again, because we're not communicating with you on a day-to-day, we're mostly communicating with management. We are required to provide you with information that is relevant to the audit, just, significant key matters. And so just a few things that I wanted to highlight. Each year we go through the exercise, are there any significant auditing standards that would be required to be implemented, or, are they going to have an impact on the financial statements? So we have that discussion typically with management early on. We also present this information to the finance committee. And so there there was just one new pronouncement that really was implemented, and it's GASB 89 on cost incurred on a construction cost, and really didn't have a significant impact on the financial statements. And so it was implemented with no significant impact. And then a couple more things here. We also, as part of our audit, we do review significant estimates. This is obviously very important. We have to understand how these estimates are derived, what the methodology is. And so we do go over these with management. We get an understanding. Obviously, having conducted the audit in the past, we have also a fairly good understanding of these. And so some of those significant estimates that we review are the determination of the fair value of investments, the lives of the capital assets for purposes of calculating depreciation expense. We also have the actuary evaluation reports that we review. There's a lot of assumptions that go into those reports. These are obviously used for the determination of the net pension liability, or in this case, net pension asset for some of the plans. And then we're obviously getting an understanding, looking at some of these assumptions that are used. And we're also obviously looking at the valuation reports for the medical benefits, which is the OPEB benefits that are also disclosed and reported in your financial statements. So we get a really good understanding on those. There's also risk management liabilities that we review to make sure that we have a good understanding. And so we determined that those were reasonable and we didn't have any concerns. And then just a couple, two more items that I wanted to go over. This letter, usually if there's any significant audit adjustments that we would be finding and we would be reporting to management, we would be also required to report that to you in this letter. And so very happy to report that we did not have any proposed audit adjustments that impacted the financial statements. And I just wanted to quickly commend management for this great achievement, because nowadays, if you have a audit proposed significant adjustment, that could actually trigger you getting a significant deficiency or a material weakness in your Yellow Book report. And I'll cover the Yellow Book report here shortly, but I just wanted to highlight that and also, again, commend management for this great achievement. And then one more thing on this letter before I move on to the next slide is we did not have any disagreements with management. We work very well together. I also just wanted to highlight too that we really enjoy, working with management of the district. They're always so proactive. If there's any sort of, issue or question that comes up, they're really good about, bringing that to our attention, communicating that to us, and reaching out to us for guidance. So we really appreciate that relationship. Any questions before I move to the next?
Questions or comments from board members or members of the public? I would just like to say, yeah, I really love reading these things and things that say things like clean, what are those other expressions? Clean, unmodified, no misunderstandings. That's what I expect from our people. I was wondering, and I was sitting here formulating this question, and I was going to say, you've done this for 3 years now, and I don't know if it's you personally, but your firm has. I think it's been 3 years. I was wondering if anything has changed at all. But then after I formulated that question, I started looking at the people. So this park district, where I consider lots and lots of new people, you seem to have a whole bunch of veterans. I mean, Kim and David and Connie and Michelle and Deborah, those are seasoned veterans. So I guess nothing has changed, right? Because it's the same players and it has been for 3 years. And I guess I'll just say I'm happy to hear that.
Thank you. Well, obviously, consistency, is always a good thing, but, also, again, wanting to highlight, that, the dedication of the staff. Really, this is what the results of this report really is a testament to that.
Yes, I think we all recognize that. Thank you.
Welcome. So on the next slide, and thank you also for highlighting and reviewing these reports before the presentation. So obviously, our first report that I wanted to cover is the main opinion on the financial statements, and also very, very happy to report that we were satisfied with all the information that was provided, and we were able to conclude that the financial statements were materially accurate, and we were able to provide an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion. So this is, again, the highest form of opinion that you can receive. So again, congratulations on that. And then I mentioned throughout my presentation about the Yellow Book report and internal control and the importance over that. And so again, we are required, as we're working on our audit, to provide you with any instances of non-compliance if we identify any. And also, as we're going through our internal controls, whether we are going through our understanding and refreshing ourselves in those, we may identify some opportunities for recommendations. But obviously, some of these recommendations could elevate to a significant deficiency or a material weakness. And, very, very happy to report that we did not have any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies to report. And again, congratulations on that. And then the other report on this slide that I also wanted to go over, and I also mentioned about, the federal awards that, the district receives. We do have to perform a separate audit on these federal programs, and we have to look at the compliance over those federal requirements and provide you with our opinion on the results of that audit. So just a couple of items that I wanted to highlight. We did have one major program to test, and that determination, is determined based on the total awards, and a lot of things go into that calculation. But based on that, and the fact, actually, I wanted to highlight that the district has been considered a low risk, which allows us to reduce the amount of the testing. And so, for instance, if you were considered high risk based on, previous audits where they were items reportable, where you didn't get a, clean opinion, then instead of just auditing one major program, we might actually have to test more than one. So this year, we did test only one major program. Again, we tested controls, we looked at the compliance requirements, performed our testing procedures. And our opinion on the federal awards is unmodified, so also clean opinion. And we did not identify any material weaknesses, no findings that would be required to be reported under those standards. So again, congratulations on that as well. All right, so just before I turn it over to any questions that you might have, again, I just wanted to quickly provide you with a very quick review of the financial statements. And so I do want to say that obviously, producing a financial report, it's pretty labor intensive. It requires a lot of effort. A lot of people are involved. We do take that process pretty seriously, when we do our review and to provide our feedback to your management. And so I just wanted to, again, quickly give you a very quick summary of, what our process is internally. And so we first start with, once we get a first draft, we send it over to our administrative department, which is our clerical, and they perform their reviews. They do a complete footing of the entire document. They do also grammar check, and so they provide their comments back, and I provide those to the district. And then we also, once we have a clean draft, we get into the management and partner review. And so I perform my review, and I utilize internal checklists that we use to make sure that all the required elements and following all the required GASP standards are included. But I also take a look at the GFOA checklist because obviously, the district goes for that award. And so we want to make sure that that is compliant with the GFOA requirements. So once I go ahead and finish my review, I'll go ahead and provide your management again with our comments. And then we also subject the financial statements to what we call a quality control review, which is another partner that is not involved with the audit. And, we feel that that's an important process for us because, we make sure that someone that wasn't involved in the audit performs a full review to make sure that we didn't miss anything. So that's just kind of like a very quick overall. And, every time that we are provided with the draft, it's a really nice draft. Again, I commend management for producing such a well document. And so it makes obviously our review even quicker and simpler. So thank you for that. And then just a couple other things that I wanted to highlight. Obviously, once the financial statements are finalized, they'll be submitted to the GFOA for the award. That'll happen on or before the end of the month. And then the only other thing on our end is once all the financials and reports are finalized, is that we do submit the single audit report to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse. That is a requirement. And so that has actually already been completed. So I just wanted to give you that information for your information. And that kind of concludes our presentation. We're open to any questions or comments you may have.
Questions, comments by board members?
Well, I want to thank you for the report, and I share Director Waspie's relief that it doesn't appear that there's anything major, any issues, but I would like to just, is there anything in here? It certainly looks good based on your slides, but would like to know, was there anything that you found that you feel like you should bring to our attention that you haven't already?
No, like I said, and thank you for that excellent question. Like I said, throughout the audit, we're obviously meeting with management so that if there is an issue or, we have some sort of recommendation, we would report that to your management as well. And again, we are also meeting with your general manager also to give her the opportunity to ask us any questions as they relate to the audit, and also to provide her the report. And then finally, like I said, I did make myself available for any questions that the Finance Committee might have. And so everything that would be required to be reported was reported. Thank you for your question again.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
If there are no further comments, once again, my compliments. I can't see everybody on this. Oh, now I can. Great, Deborah, pardon me. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to thank the Brown Armstrong team. I think just by the presentation, you can tell that they are very diligent in their work. And I think I've mentioned before that I've been at other agencies where you don't feel like the auditors give you a very good scrubbing. And here they really do look under all of the, they look under everything. They look in the closets, and we really feel like they are really reviewing our work at a very detailed level. And Rosalva also pointed out all the details that go into putting this audit together. So I really appreciate you sharing that it is a complex and technical process that we go through. And so thank you to the finance team, because it is a lot of work and you do such a great job. And thank you to the audit team for really making sure that you are looking at our financials in a very detailed way. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Deborah. I appreciate your comment. And I just wanted to add, obviously that I'm very fortunate to work with such a great team. Your staff is, excellent. We did have, a new manager on our team. Paul joined us this year, and everything still went really smooth. And, again, I appreciate the opportunity for, another great audit. And, you're right. We are pretty thorough. It seems sometimes that we're asking questions all the way to the end, but, making sure that, we do provide you with the quality audit, because we take that very seriously. Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, I see no public here, no other comments. Thank you again, Rosalva and Paul. And thank you for availing of yourself yesterday, Rosalva.
Absolutely.
It was great talking to you in person about what was going on. And I appreciate that opportunity. Thank you all to staff again for the great report and or the great job you did, and thanks to Rosalva and her team for the great report. And we look forward. We do have the opportunity now to recommend by a vote to send this to the full board for approval. So if there's no further discussion, can I get a motion to recommend this to the full board?
So moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Director Eccles and a second by Director Wieskamp. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Shannon, could you do a roll call vote for us, please?
Yes, thank you. Shannon Rice, Recording Secretary, taking roll call vote. Director Wieskamp,
Aye.
Director Eccles,
Aye.
Chair Waspy.
Aye. All right, so that motion passes unanimously. Thanks again, everyone, for being here and giving a great report and all the great work. Our next item of business is the East Bay Regional Park District Capital Finance Update on Measure CC and Measure FF. And I assume Jeff Rasmussen's in the house. Yes, hi Jeff.
Yes, Jeff Rasmussen is going to do the presentation, and I will just make a few opening remarks. So here today, we're going to give you an information item on our initiatives. Measure CC, which is in closeout mode. Certainly there are still projects we're working on, but we're receiving no additional funds. And its successor, Measure FF, which we are currently receiving taxes in accordance with the Community Facilities District that was adopted. And we have some ongoing projects, ongoing funding that is supported by this just over $3 million annually in our Measure FF zone. And so I'm going to turn it over to Jeff to walk you through kind of the status and where we are. Some of the projects that will continue to be funded we'll talk about, but also during our annual budget process, we'll really make, we'll wait for the annual budget to make any further recommendations about new projects. So go ahead, Jeff.
Great, thank you, Deborah. Jeff Rasmussen, Assistant Finance Officer, and I will work to share my screen here. How's it look to everybody?
Very good, Jeff.
Fine.
Great. So as Deborah said, we're kind of in a transitional mode of closing out CC and getting started with Measure FF. And remind you that this is part of our budget process of informing the Finance Committee of what's going on with our programs as we move into preparing the budget, discussing some ongoing projects, and then we'll be looking to maybe add some new projects only during the budget process. So I'll start with Measure CC and FF and just remind everybody, this is the boundary or the area of the district that's covered by it, and it's the same map or same area for both measures. So we'll start with Measure CC first. So as Deborah said, the measure, sunsetted, the taxes ended in 2020. We stopped receiving our revenue. And also realize as we start a measure, we have a certain estimate. We estimated $3.1 million per year over the 15-year life of the measure, but the actual comes in different. So this, at the bottom here, we received $47.9 million. So that is now the actual revenue, not the estimated 46 million and change that we thought we'd get. We actually received $47.9 million. But then again, that's it. That's all the revenue we'll ever receive from Measure CC. So where are we on that to date? So so far we've appropriated $47.7 million to projects. We've spent $42.8 million of that, and we have $4.9 million left to spend. So about 10% still left to spend. In Measure CC, there are 84 projects in total, and the schedule is in there and part of your packet. So if you look at that or have any questions, you should certainly do that. So 65 are complete, and I'm sorry, yeah, 65 are complete, and 19 are in progress and working towards closeout. And just to note, there are a lot of operational projects in CC and FF. All the operational projects within CC have been closed and ended. But then all those positions that were originally funded in CC were either moved to Measure FF, or some of them were moved to the general fund, but there are no more operational, no more staffing funded by Measure CC. It's only projects left. So as we close out these projects and there's money left remaining, then last year we made a recommendation in the board took a look to moving any money that's left over as we continue to close out projects and potentially moving that to fuels management as the final placeholder for Measure CC work. So we are still making that recommendation for the 2023 budget. Right now, we estimate that amount to be $566,000, but we'll see what the final amount is as we get towards the 2023 budget, and also what the board's pleasure is in that regard. So just a few highlights of Measure CC projects in progress. This is a landslide repaired at Claremont Canyon for a potential trail through there. The next phase we are working on is taking out the home up there and making room for a potential staging area or other access. The home is really decrepit and really attractive for vandals and that kind of thing. So I know park staff is definitely looking forward to get rid of that. One of the big projects in CC was a renovation of the stream trail and Redwood Creek in Reinhardt Redwood Park. This got complicated and benefited from FEMA coming in, so now they're closely tied together. So this project is moving forward with a lot of significant help from FEMA. We're able to get a lot more done, but it's also taking a lot more time. Another great project, big project in Measure CC and Fuels Management was a good amount of funding for eucalyptus control and management in Point Pinole. But near at the end of CC, there was a wonderful opportunity to partner that with a grant from the Wildlife Conservation Board to do monarch habitat improvements. So as I understand it, for monarchs, you need to thin the eucalyptus in a proper way so you have the right amount of sunlight and wind, but protection for the monarchs. And the staff was able to install these nectar gardens to help support them. So a really great partnership between grants and Measure CC and staff at a Point Pinole. Rachel Lorenz and Rob Diekman, they all did, and Kristen Van Dam from our stewardship department, all did an outstanding job on this project. Just a big part of CC, not to forget, the project is the Tidewater Access. The project continues, it's in FF, and we're pursuing grants, but this is also a major commitment for Measure CC, so that Tidewater Public Access continues. And then one of our future projects is the shoreline improvements at Miller Knox. There was a big commitment to continue and expand the Bay Trail in this area, and we've been kind of held up by the railroad, but a lot of that's is loosening up, so this project's moving forward. And then Point Milati Bay Trail, another big commitment for Measure CC. And this project is moving forward in partnership with the State of Richmond, and lots of grants and a great effort by our Trails Department and Design and Construction. And then Doolittle Bay Trail, which is currently fully under construction. I got this picture here on the left recently from Toby Perry in our Deco department. Doesn't quite do its justice, but very complicated to do construction on the bay. And this is be a wonderful project when it's done very soon. And so with that, I think I'll move on just to Measure FF. As I said, we're getting started. This is the early years of Measure FF. This was estimated to be $3.3 million per year over the 20-year life of the measure. So an estimate of $66 million, but that may change over the life of the 20 years. And here's just a brief reminder of the goals or the strategic areas that were the focus of Measure FF, all those 6 goals right there. It's part of our outreach and planning with the community and implementing FF. So as with CC, staffing is a huge part of Measure FF. So here is our recommendations for the 2023 budget to maintain staffing through Measure FF. And you can see staffing, as with all our staffing, have an escalator built into the planning for the measure. So it's a 20-year measure. We build in an automatic escalation to try to plan for that. But to be clear, when we actually when we do prepare the budget, we will be based on the most current staffing actual costs for each year as we go forward. But we have done the best we can to pre-plan for those future costs. And then that same breakdown here, that was by park and location. And this is a similar breakdown, but also done by department. So moving on from staffing is the projects in Measure FF. I won't go through and read all these projects out here. They're on the screen here, and they're also in your packet. What I will mention here, though, that these 12 projects mentioned here are existing or ongoing or continuing projects that are already underway. So the addition of Measure FF is really implementation of our funding strategy of those projects. But over the next couple of months, staff will be reviewing, and based on the board's priority criteria, staff may be recommending projects for new FF projects, and potentially such as Point Isabel visitor improvements. That's one of the projects identified maybe in FF. Alameda Point, we're getting to the point now with the Northwest Territories and the like, where we might be ready to begin some planning and taking a closer look at what we want to do at Alameda Point, as well as Temescal. We have been working on water quality, and it is part of Measure FF, but staff may be looking at if there's anything we can do as far as, either dredging or basin improvements or other actual real improvements if the timing's right to move those forward. So we'll be looking at those and potentially bringing those to the board as part of the 2023 budget. So just a few highlighted projects to share with you. Fuels management, a big part of CC and FF, and I really thank the fire department for giving us these new great action shots of work being done in the fuel break. And fire department and all their staff and operations do a wonderful job. Such a great program for us. Also continuing project is the Crown Beach McKay Avenue utilities and sewer project. So that's a big part of Measure FF. And then water resource projects. I'm not sure we have all the treatment solutions, but we continue to fight the good fight and struggle to control and do the best we can with water quality. At Temescal and Lake Anza and the like. So that effort will definitely continue. And then kind of related to the Miller and Ox portion of Measure CC, a big part of Measure FF was improvements to Keller Beach. And I'll just add here that our Government Affairs Department came to us with a $2.6 million grant opportunity, and the Design and Construction Department did a great job in identifying Keller Beach as a great place where that money can be. So we're really having a great opportunity to leverage a tremendous partnership and grant opportunity with Measure FF funds here at Keller Beach. And so with that, I'll end my presentation and stop sharing, and then we'll open up for any questions.
Deborah Ocker.
If I could just add a few comments before we go to director's questions. Thank you very much, Jeff. It is just as Jeff was mentioning, it's so important to note that this is a $12 annual tax to those households that are within the CC boundary, and it really leverages other money, right? 3.3 million per year is not going to build these big projects, but it allows us to have funds that we can leverage with these other grant funds, with other opportunities that come up. So besides the staffing that it provides in this kind of older section of the park district, the funding is really helpful in leveraging. So thanks for the presentation, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Any questions, comments from board members?
And well, thank you so much for the presentation. Love seeing all those pictures of Point Pinot, Miller Knox, etc. So love it. And love to see the ongoing work as part of Measure FF. Yeah, so I'm just interested. Certainly, we didn't see the amounts of money drop at all during the during COVID. I'm just wondering, like, now with interest rates going up and property values potentially going down, do we see any concerns there on the horizon, or do we feel like the market is still sufficiently robust?
Yeah, Director Eccles, this is a special community facilities district tax. So it is a flat amount of $12 charged on the different parcels, and it's not related to the assessed valuation, which is something that our general property tax is linked to. But to answer your question, the Alameda County, which the majority of this is in, and also in Contra Costa, are not seeing any reduction in assessed valuation. There's actually some new development going on in the different jurisdictions, the different cities within our jurisdiction, which are increasing the assessed valuation, along with, as you've seen, housing prices continue to grow. And remember, the assessor checks things in June for a July 1st assessment, and it's not until the following June. So the assessments for this year are set, and we won't know until probably next year, a year from now, if there's going to be any change in AV because of this increase in interest rates, which make it a little harder for people to get mortgages. So for now, I think they're pretty stable at around 6% is their current estimate.
Great. Well, thank you for answering the question I meant to ask, Deborah. It's very helpful.
I have a question. You know, in the past, we have talked about doing this in other sectors because this has been so successful. Are we looking at that again or not?
Certainly, if you recall my presentation yesterday, Director Wieskamp, where we talked about East Contra Costa County and
Yes.
how when we
And
annexed
Murray
that
Township,
area,
the whole group,
yeah, we annexed that area without any of the 1% property tax. And my presentation showed that, you know, a minimum of $3 million just for that far east area. And we're only getting lighting and landscaping district money of, you know, just under 900,000. There certainly is a need for adding some operational and capital funding for that that other sector of the district. So I think as we continue with our project development and community surveying, we will get closer to when that is something that we're focusing on.
Well, I'm sure the population has increased in the Antioch, that whole area. And I would think that it might be good to at least test the idea. Simply because I think they appreciate what's been done there, but I think they would like more. I just can't believe they wouldn't. I think it's worth looking at. Maybe we should talk about that tomorrow. Who knows?
Thank you.
Connie? Oh, you just lit up, Connie. I would just say, I got a couple questions.
My apologies. I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. So I see at the end of the Measure CC report, there's a $566,000 balance, and it's going to go to the, or it's recommended that we send it to fuels management projects and vegetation projects. While I obviously have supported fire stuff for all my life, I'm kind of wondering if there's any way, well, I know we'll talk about it as board members. I wonder if the community has that feeling. Does feeling with all the work we've done there, I wonder if there's some forms of security. I'm kind of working in the direction, and I look at the quote, you know, that there's contingency funds for reserves for a quote unknown events and opportunities. And I'm thinking of an unknown event, which I would call an unknown event. When I look at the map of Measure CC, they used to have 3 swimming facilities. They have none now. Obviously, there's a couple of reasons for that. Some of them are very good. We're improving that. Roberts, obviously, and making it an incredible place. But Roberts is probably going to need more money. I don't know if that's fully funded. I just know that every contract we get, we blow through the contingency in no time and start going into other funds. That's an editorial comment. I don't know that it rings true all the time, but I think I'm wondering if the debate should be at some point, or I just pontificating at this point or editorializing, that say doing things like dredging Temescal, dredging Lake Chabot, which is going to be, you know, a giant project, but somebody's got to think about it. And Lake Chabot is in the Measure CC area, and many people that pay the parcel tax in the Measure CC area love Lake Chabot and use it incredibly a lot. So I'm wondering if that might be, or getting our swim facilities back up, or maybe investigating new ways of getting swim facilities might be a little better use of those funds. Just a comment. And then I'm asking another question. So of the Safe and Healthy Forest 2.5 full-time positions, FTEs, what are those? Are those in the fire department? Are those like fuels coordinators?
Yes, and I won't bring it back up on the screen, but there was a breakdown on the PowerPoint. Let me see if I can pull it up again. Fire department is 0.04 FTE for a fire captain, 0.075 for a firefighter 2, 0.075 for a fuels reduction coordinator, and I think there's part of a resource analyst, Kristen Van Dam. So fire captain, firefighter, fuels reduction coordinator, and a resource analyst as part of that.
All right, thank you. And then I guess finally, we talked about leveraging other funds and the success of these measures and other people and doing it district-wide. I think the way, well, for one way, the way we sold this as promises to people, we seem to be keeping our promises. I love reports out like this, all the great work we're doing, all of the extra stuff we can do by having a measure like this. I think personally, not only do we leverage other funds, but I know that my neighbors lust for a fund like this because they're continually talking about fire suppression and fire management, or not suppression, fire mitigation before it starts, and vegetation management. And they talk about, why can't we do it over here? And I say, well, you know, the folks up in the Berkeley Oakland Hills are paying for that, and they're paying for it through this Measure WW and Measure CC, and it's quite successful. And if you want to do that too, you can organize everybody, and let's do that there. So I think the fact that we're doing excellent work, not only we leverage more funds, but I think more people see this, and more people might be willing to tax themselves to have a fund like this. But anyway, thanks for the report.
Yeah.
Deborah.
I just, Director Waspy, I wanted to respond to your comments about the remaining funds when we close out other projects, the $566,000 estimate. And I thank you for your comments that we were making a recommendation, but this is for the board to decide where that funding should go. So we will bring this as part of the budget process for discussion for the board to deliberate about whether these funds should go towards a specific project or go somewhere else like fuels management. I think that's a great point for you to bring up to me.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I see any members of the public like to comment on this? Seeing none. Anything else for the good of the order? This is just an informational item, and it was great information. Thank you. I assume you'll do this report to the full board at some point?
Well, actually, in the past, we were presenting some of this information at a board workshop, and this is our first year of transitioning to a different format. So it was our intention to just bring this to the Finance Committee, and then any of the follow-up items would go to the full board as part of the budget, as part of the annual budget process. So they won't be getting this same presentation.
Okay, but this presentation would be available, Jeff's PowerPoint would be available, and because it's great information.
Absolutely. Any board members can review this presentation on our YouTube channel.
Great, I'll recommend it to them.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this was just an informational item. We'll move to item 3, public comments. Any public comments? Shannon, did anybody call in or use any of the methods?
No, I have not received any public comments.
Okay, then we'll move to item 4, committee comments. Any comments from committee members?
Nothing further.
Always good.
All right, yeah, thank you. Wonderful presentations. Thanks for having a great day. Have a wonderful weekend. No, it's not the weekend. We got a few more days. But anyway,
are you missing the meeting tomorrow? Come on.
We are
Right, we have two more board meetings this week.